So the Iraqis struck the Ben Gurion airport, right? And they also struck Haifa. I mean, you have to understand how startling it is that the Iraqis are able to strike this far and strike this deep into occupied Palestine. Let me pull up this map, for example. I picked this starting point here at Abu Kamad because this is considered traditionally a crossing for the resistance, right? And if you look at the distance, it's 500 kilometers. It's not just the distance, also it's the fact that they're hitting their targets, right? So this is the other day. This is on the 6th of March. They hit Haifa, which is the port, and that was the second time in 3 days. And they disabled a power plant, and they plunged the airport into darkness. And then again yesterday, they struck Ben Gurion Airport, which is again the largest airport in occupied Palestine. And think of how crazy that is, because when we talk about the Gaza war, people again are always thinking that it's happening just down here in Gaza. It's clearly and obviously not. And the fact that, you know, the Iraqi resistance can hit anywhere in occupied Palestine is wild. It's absolutely wild. On top of that, the Iraqi resistance have been able to hit Eilat. So again, when we talk about Haifa, that's the Israeli port in the Mediterranean Sea over here. Eilat is down here in the Red Sea. Okay. Now, traffic at this port has been rendered. I mean, it's been driven down to zero basically because of the Yemeni blockade. You know, I mean, what they have done there, it's really incredible. The fact that they've been able to stop all trade, grind it to a halt, and make the Israelis resort to bringing their supplies through a land route, which is costing them enormous amounts of money. So the fact the Iraqis can strike in Eilat and Haifa, that Hezbollah are able to strike also in the Red Sea and on the Mediterranean. I mean, this leaves pretty much every member of the resistance, whether it's Iran, whether it's Syria, Iraq, Hamas, Hezbollah, or Yemen. This makes sure, this means that every member of the resistance axis is able to hit the Israelis at any place, whether it's in the Mediterranean or in the Red Sea. That is colossal. You have to understand how crazy that is. This was unimaginable before. Unimaginable. And it shows you once again that the strategy that the West have employed of trying to grind down the resistance axis has failed. It's failed during the last 4 months, and it's failed during the last decades. If anything, Hezbollah have even more weaponry now, more advanced weaponry, and they are able to operate that weaponry to great extents, right? To great distances and in a radius that encompasses all of Palestine. Now, Yemen, the same thing. I showed you already before, like how crazy it is that Yemen can fire all the way from here to Eilat. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. So what's happened is you've had the spread of technology from Iran to all these members of the resistance. And I mean, it's necessary. You know, what is so strange about Iran helping people to fight a colonizer? You know, 50 countries with a zero, 50 countries were supplying Ukraine. Not, I think, not all of them with lethal, but at least 30 when you count NATO. So the majority of them were giving Ukraine weapons. So what's wrong with Iran supplying these countries? And this is a legitimate cause because they're actually occupied. Syria is occupied by Israel. Palestine is occupied by Israel. Lebanon is occupied by Israel. Iraq, I mean, they've been destroyed by the United States. They've suffered immensely at the hands of the Zionists and the United States, as have Yemen. They have every right to defend themselves. It's not like Iran is going to a country on the other side of the planet, like the Americans are doing, and then supplying someone to cause trouble. These are Iran's neighbors. They're neighbors. We already saw what happened in Afghanistan. We already saw what happened in Iraq. You know, we know what the United States brings to this region, and it's not good. So This is the only counterweight. It's the only counterweight available. And it's an effective counterweight, and it's a necessary one, and it's a legal and a moral one, right? I don't care what anyone says. You know, defending yourself is enshrined in the Geneva Convention and the UN Charter. It's your legal right under international law, and by any means necessary. You want to throw donuts, rocks, RPGs? I don't care. It's your issue. It's up to you, but don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The law is crystal clear. And I want to tell you, in addition to what Iraq have accomplished here, which is really, I mean, really remarkable, but they're not telling you in the media because how embarrassing it is. Remember, the Americans are occupying Iraq. They're still in Iraq, and they're still in Syria. They have a no lid on the situation. This is like an out of control fire for the Americans and the Israelis. And I want to just pose a question in this way. If someone was giving you a beat down, and then you have a second and a third person, wouldn't you be screaming about this? We only hear the Israelis ever talk about Hamas. Sometimes they mention Yemen, but most of the time they only talk about Hamas. Don't you find it weird that almost every day the Americans and the Israelis are getting hit by Iraq, they get hit by Syria, they're getting hit by Hezbollah, they're getting hit by Yemen, and they don't say anything? How weird is that? It's because they know that they asked for this, and they know how embarrassing it is. It is better not to say anything, basically. They are not prepared for this. They're not prepared for this. I mean that like physically and also literally and figuratively. I want to show you what Yemen did as well, and I swear to God, this made me laugh so much. This made me laugh so much. I was watching a segment on Fox, okay, about this, and they were basically talking about how Yemen had fired, I think, over 20 drones, something like 28 drones, on some on commercial ships, but mostly on U.S. ships, right? So again, just to be clear, Yemen are firing on commercial ships that are linked to Israel. Other ships are free to pass. But not only that, Yemen are also firing on American ships, on military ships. So if you think Yemen are afraid or deterred in any fashion or in any manner by the presence of the U.S. Navy, you're sorely mistaken. They don't give a fuck. And why should they? After all, the Americans are the ones invading their country and their space and who bombed them and made them suffer. So, the Yemenis have every right to defend themselves. They're in their own country. And so, they fired, here you can see they fired 28 drones. And the Americans say they shot down 28. We don't know where the others landed. You always have to pay attention to the headlines, because the Yemenis might have fired 30 or 40 and the rest of them hit, right? I'm telling you that the drones are Yemen's way of going easy on the Americans, because if they had fired these anti-ship ballistic missiles, and again, these are the Americans who said this themselves, you've got like 30 seconds to react or you're gone. Okay, now we're talking about military ships. Obviously, it's going to depend now on the class. What are we talking about? A submarine, a dinghy boat, a destroyer, an aircraft carrier? It's going to depend. But I'm just generally speaking, we're seeing Yemen and Hezbollah use military technology in ways that haven't been adapted before. So it's difficult to apply countermeasures to that. And the fact that they're not deterred, I mean, what can you do? What can you do? The thing that they said on Fox, which made me laugh so much, because I swear to God, get your calculators out, although we can do this with mental math. Please get your calculators out and wait for it. 28 drones they shot down, right? 28 drones. Okay? Now, the Americans, this is on Fox, mind you, okay? We're saying that every single missile used to shoot down a Yemeni drone costs $2 million. So, and the Yemeni drone costs a few hundred or a few thousand. Let me repeat that. You got a Yemeni drone that costs a few $1,000 being shot down by an American missile that cost $2 million. How much money was just wasted for 28? I count 56. $56 million at least. I mean, look, man, even if you didn't hit the ships, you already won just by bleeding the enemy of financial resources. Now, the sad thing here is that it's actually the American taxpayer who's being bled, and Americans weren't even asked if they're okay with this. It's just like, fuck you, you know, we're going to go bomb people whether you like it or not, as usual. So, you know, I find this so funny, and I told you this before about the Royal Navy. So, you know, you've got the USS, which are US Navy, and then His Majesty's ships, the HMS. The Royal Navy are using Sea Viper missiles. Each one costs over £1 million. So again, do the math. In this case, you know, be 28, 29, 30 million pounds. But we know that it was the United States who shot down most of these. I mean, what so funny, so funny. And as you go down below in the article, you can see it was 37 drones that were fired. So if they only shot down 28, where did the rest of them go? These are the questions that need answering, right? And I think it's quite remarkable that Yemen have risen to the challenge. They've done what Egypt could not do or would not do, which is to close the Red Sea, to really give two middle fingers to the West and say, you know what? You're not going to use the Arab trade routes while you're killing Arabs. Tough shit. Go around Africa, go down to Antarctica and come back up. Tough shit. Oh, and you know what? Any of you who try to pass will be shot down. You know, and of course they tried to do it without killing anyone. Unfortunately, 3 people died the other day. But I mean, you know, the Israelis, every time someone dies in Palestine, they say you should blame Hamas. Okay, well then blame Israel, because they keep bombing Gaza. They're the reason the blockade is in place. So, I'm honestly walking on the Israeli flag. I mean, there's a British flag over there. Honestly, I don't. What can I say, man? We colonized Yemen once, bombed them and starved them with the Saudis, and now again, I can't blame them. How can I blame them? How can I sit here and blame them and act like the victim? You know, this is very sad also, because this ship here, that the Rubiamar, which again I did a video about because of these stupid journalists or so-called journalists who were basically smear merchants for the press, the gutter press. You were giving me crap about this. Well, yeah, it sunk in the end, didn't it? And I was right. And the point here is that all of the fertilizer that's on board, who gets hurt by that? Is this British territory? No. Is this American territory? No. The people that are going to get hurt by the sinking of this ship are the Yemenis. So who the fuck, you know, says that the West have the right to complain about this? You have no right to complain about this. You're not suffering any consequences. The crew got off safe. No one died. But it's Yemen's waters that will be polluted because of this, because of Israel, because of the West. So just, you know, I wanted to give you sort of a brief summary about what's happening on the Iraqi front, on the Lebanese front, as we were talking about Hezbollah, and now on the Yemeni front. You have to always, you know, you have to always keep in mind and bear in mind that this is a multi-front war. It's not just confined to Gaza. Gaza is the focal point, of course. It's the focal point, but these are just as important.